Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me. I've really been looking forward to having this chat. Ben and I were just laughing because we did try to meet before and it was just the internet gods were against us. So better luck this time, I'm hoping.
It's
Yeah,
funny, you remember when as soon as we stopped recording, it worked fine.
it was fine. We spoke for like 45 minutes. Hey, so ridiculous. I don't know. Sometimes these things happen. But so we connected originally because you are the co-founder of JobsASI. And I wanted to tell you, since we spoke last, yesterday I was going through a bunch of applications with one of the technical leads at Terraflow, and he was really impressed with the summaries because he could know better than me, right? When seeing the note and comparing it to the CV, just how accurate it is. And he's like, no, this is working really nicely. So yay Nix for finding it, but yay Ben for making it. So that was quite cool.
Simon as well, of course, my co-founder. But yeah, no, that's such good feedback. It's always good to get good feedback. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so I'm curious to know your story, your journey. What really struck me in your profile was the way that you started in recruitment and then kind of moved into the engineering space and became more of a data engineer yourself, and then have now created this recruitment tool using your data engineering skills. So talk us through a little bit of that, and then I'll dive deeper into the JobsASI side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I suppose yeah, a bit of a bizarre, mix of careers that I've had. So yeah, like you said, started off in recruitment in 2011 after studying maths at university, and yeah, did that for a while. Built and ran a couple of my own companies, and yeah, really enjoyed it. And I
What
think
was it? Let me stop you there. What did you enjoy about it? What's because recruitment's such a weird thing. It's like you're just born to do it. You don't even know it exists. Never really heard of it. Kind of fall into it most of the time. What was it that had you hooked in this sort of lifelong career in recruitment?
So at the beginning, I was obviously in external recruitment on agency side, and I think that there's that just really clear feedback loop between doing a good job and finding out that you've done a good job or not. So it's very much like clear when you're on the right track. There's just some
And clear when
clarity
you're
there.
not, right?
Oh yeah, you do. Yeah, and those are never great, but yeah, that motivates you to get to the other things. And I think I always found it fascinating speaking to people and trying to understand what they did, how they do what they do, but also how they fit into the wider business. So I started off recruiting tax accountants of all things, and it was a fascinating thing for me because I got to talk to people about personal tax accountants. So they'd talk about, how to optimize high net worth individuals' tax, but then I'd also talk to corporate tax accountants who would look at doing the same sort of things, but for businesses. So yeah, really fascinating. And
It is
obviously there,
fascinating. I think as recruiters, we have this very unique insight into the businesses that we work for, and whether it's in an agency or internal, because we get like very uniquely to work on all different aspects of the company and understand, as you say, like how all the different pieces fit together and who the right person would then be for that particular role. I got you.
exactly, yeah. And yeah, then moving into different areas, you get to learn different skill sets, what different people do in different organizations. So yeah, for me, I think as someone who is super passionate about learning, I think you've got the opportunity there to sort of really learn lots about many different things. And yeah, sure, it might be a bit more of a surface level than like going deep in one area, but if you continually hire into one area, you can actually go, deeper and deeper. And I think that's sort of how I started off going down into the sort of software engineering, data engineering piece, where I went in-house. So I moved and joined a startup called Travelnest, employee number 6 or 7. I was the head of talent there, and we just interviewed software engineers over and over again. And I was very lucky to work with the CTO, Alistair Han, who was the ex-CTO of Skyscanner. And we only had him 1 day a week, and we wanted him to do 4 or 5 interviews. So I sat with him in the interviews to sort of really close that feedback loop of it wasn't like, right, I've not caught him at the end of the day to get his feedback, which people he wants to hire or not. So and actually being in part of those interviews, I started to learn those interviews and how how things move together. And
and you start to really absorb the information just by exposure, right? Like what is it that this person is looking for? What do these acronyms actually mean? Why is that abbreviated? How does it fit into everything? And you just start to learn by osmosis.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I don't know how many people in-house talent get to sit in on like a full technical screen, but it's super valuable. And like the amount that I learned in those really helped me. I think the more you understand about a role, the easier it is to recruit for that role.
Totally. And the better you get at it, right, for that particular hiring manager or that team, because you see how they are filtering, you see how they are questioning, like what's important to them.
Exactly. And yeah, so then I was sort of got the bug again. I'd done some coding at university and some stats, but the engineers there were amazing, and they took me under their wing and taught me how to get Python up and running on my Mac, and I started building out some little tools. So I built like automations for LinkedIn where I'd like go and like add people, and this was we still don't really have like good LinkedIn automation tools. I ended up finding LinkedIn Helper in the end, but that like automating it myself with Python was like, wow, like there's the
magic.
I don't know, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice,
Yeah.
and easier. It started to feel a little bit like I was the broomsticks were moving on their own.
So you got bitten by the coding bug back in university, but then you actually got to play around with it a bit in your job and make it do something for you that was effective. Got you.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And then I suppose joined Cytora, so moved down to London, and I spent almost 3 years there, I think, and very slowly sort of became more and more technical as I was sort of working with my stuff on the side. And eventually Aeneas, the CTO, was very gracious enough to ask me to sort of look after the team while we were hiring for our sort of VP of engineering. And so I actually moved over into sort of direct line management. And the idea was that when we hired the VP, I'd move and just become an engineering manager. So that was such a good opportunity for me. And it was actually that point when I sort of flipped from sort of it being something that I tried to do on the side and learn as much about, to being like, oh wow, this is now my full-time job, and that doesn't mean the learning stops. It actually means like
imagine the escalate. Yeah.
100%. I now this is my day job, so I can spend all day doing this, which was
So then
awesome.
you got a lot of exposure to engineering projects as a result, I imagine. Yeah, that looks like a beer, Ben. You're having a draft. Oh, I just saw the yellow. Go you. Go UK people. That's how you roll on a Tuesday.
Tuesday 10 a.m. That would be
It's time to crack open. Funny. Okay, sorry, I sidetracked you. So you got exposure to a lot of different engineering projects as a result, right? And I'm just putting the pieces together in my mind how you got to JobsASI. I'm just, seeing how the whole thing unfolds.
So we were, that was a data platform in AWS and GCP. It was all serverless. We had quite a bit of Golang as well. That was super interesting to sort of see what we were doing there. And that was building an API platform with data APIs and data products before things were called data products. Had a really good exposure there. And then I moved to Curve, joined the sort of Curve credit team. So helped launch that product, and then actually found that a lot of the things that we wanted to do meant that we needed to do more on the sort of data and machine learning side, so credit decisioning and that sort of thing. So I moved to take over the data teams there, and spent 2 years on what was like a really cutting edge data platform on GCP using dbt before it was popular, an Airflow or Composer. So that's obviously not that new and sexy cutting edge, but like again, just a best in class tool. So I was also really lucky there to I think I've been lucky in my career to sort of, maybe I've latched on to the sort of these principal engineers or staff engineers who just like really know what they're talking about, and are
Willing to
also
share that information with you, like excited by your excitement, probably, happy to share because of your enthusiasm.
precisely, yeah. So I had a great staff engineer, Claudio, that I worked for like really, really closely with, and then the principal engineer, Adrian, who was just like an absolute wizard, and bizarrely was always right, like almost annoyingly so. Yeah, so that was amazing, just to work with those guys, and build out different bits of like infrastructure and kit and tooling for engineers, and yeah, it was awesome.
So I don't want to lead this too much, but was there some point where you thought to yourself, there's not enough tools that make use of this kind of technology in recruitment? Like, how did we get to JobsASI?
Yeah, so after Curve, I moved to Infogrid, and like that was a weird turning point for me, because I was still felt very much had that imposter syndrome, and I was going there to be a people leader, and actually what I had to do was very much more on the technical leadership side. So that was sort of like, wait, what? How, like, these are people with 20 years experience, like how do I like know more about this small bit? But the bit was data platforms, which I've been working on like solidly and only specifically on. So yeah, like it was a sort of like I knew more in this very small area, but that just happened to be a really critical area. Yeah, unfortunately, things didn't go so great there. We ended up making 2 rounds of redundancy. On the second round, I was made redundant. And so yeah, we'd been playing around with generative AI at that point, and we'd worked with a company called Delphi. So they have like a conversational interface, and we'd put our data platform there, and this had sort of that connection to it, so you could chat in Slack to our data warehouse, which was super cool. So you could say, we put internet things into buildings, and we said like, oh, what's the temperature in the office today, and it would give you an answer.
Isn't it like IoT, like Internet of Things type stuff? Yeah.
That was it. So yeah, so we were playing around with those ideas of like, could we have that conversational interface into our data warehouse? And yeah, so got made redundant, and I was just like, right, well, I'm playing around with this stuff, like this should be interesting. I was like, right, well, recruiter mode, let's go get me a job. And I got a couple of offers, and they were from these massive recruitment businesses, effectively, job boards or RPOs, and they were saying, we want you to build something really cool with generative AI. And I was like, that, yeah, like this is the new cool thing. Like I know already enough that I know lots of the downsides as well. So, I'm not going in just being like, right, this is going to be a slam dunk from day one. We just hook it up to the API and it works. But yeah, they then said, right, okay, cool. But, it's a real job with real responsibilities. You've got to lead this team, build this strategy. There's 12 other things that are wrong, and we need you to fix them before this works. And we're like, so I said, well, actually, if I really think this is going to be a thing, and it seems like these massive companies think that it's going to be a thing, well, why don't we just build something there, and then, rather than spending 2 years building it at a company where I'm going to have 12 other distractions, why not just go and focus on it now and build it myself? And then you never know, we could always be acquired by those companies. Why not? Like, that would be great. I'm sure that would be a much better scenario for me. So yeah, so started thinking about some of these ideas, and it was really like, right, actually, this is a perfect place to sort of, I suppose, like, bring those two parts of my experience back together. So that, again, like, obviously the skill sets I learned in recruitment were pivotal in building teams and bringing them together and whatnot. But actually understanding who you're building for, and then building tools that you understand and have built before, that was something that I was like, well, obviously this is the, I'm going to build the things that I wanted to do next.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Because you now have the ability to do that. So how did you meet Simon?
So Simon was in my team. He was the staff engineer at Infogrid. So he'd been there pretty much from the beginning, and he'd architected like large parts of the system. And then as we went through, we re-architected the system, and he was pivotal, working with myself and a couple of the other senior engineers to sort of rebuild this data platform. So, you know, I worked really closely with Simon, and yeah, obviously he wasn't made redundant, but I think, you know, he sort of saw the writing on the wall, and he was like, right, you know, I'm out of here. I thought he had somewhere to go to, and turns out he just thought that his notice period was too long, and he wanted to hand in his notice early. So I was like, right, okay, cool. Well,
Come
I've got
do this thing with me. Okay, amazing, amazing. And so he's the software architect for
yeah,
JobsASI.
yeah. I'm not sure if I love the title architect. He's the CTO for sure. Like, so,
Okay, got you. Awesome.
you know,
Okay, and then sorry.
yeah, it's one of those things where I've you know, I've obviously been working on getting up to speed, but actually my hands-on coding is not the same as someone who's come up, you
Sure,
know, just doing code. So
sure.
although I understand how the things move together, you know, there's still very much like I'm
There's
an
a
awful lot to learn.
fluency that you get to when it's the core of your job, right? Which you can understand, and you're really lucky. I mean, I know you've worked hard. It's not just luck. But I envy that, because it's the big gap for me, right? Is that I have zero understanding of code, and so to be able to access that, I envy that a lot. So that's cool. Okay, so I'm just seeing how things fit together, and because of your exposure, because of your experience in recruitment, you're able to understand what recruiters might need, what they do need, what you would want, right? So just tell us a bit about JobsASI and you know, what it does for recruiters.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're taking a different tack to a lot of other AI companies that are saying they're doing recruitment. A lot of them are saying, hey, we just automate recruiters, you know, and or they'll say, oh, we'll build this whole new thing, and, you know, we're going to build basically another applicant tracking system, but this time with AI. And, you know, over time, I'm sure some of those things will happen, and there will definitely parts of the recruiter role that I think can be automated to some degree. But fundamentally, I don't think that most people are looking for, like, for me, I think that the philosophy is we want to work with the tools that recruiters already have in-house, and we want to just sort of get the talent teams to the point where they can do the things that are most impactful. And that for me is speaking to candidates, right? That's the persuasion and you know, selling, and also the sort of assessing someone, but with a human touch. You know, for me, that's something that is really difficult to replicate, you know. So that there's definitely like admin bits that I think don't add much value, and can
Thrilled
be.
to have those automated, absolutely. And what I love about what you're saying is what I always get excited by, and it's how all of these technologies are highlighting the human. You know, this idea that it's always so scary and all the rest of it. It's like, okay, yeah, we've got to be careful. I can see that, but actually, I'm thrilled not to have to touch type at the same time as maintain connection with the person that I'm interviewing. There's so many ways that things can be automated that is not harmful. It actually highlights the human individual, because then you've got the human at the end of it, that the machine can't do that special thing that humans do, where they connect with each other and have a real conversation and understand each other. Machines can't do that, not yet anyway. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you definitely had those sort of like pen pal AIs that people have been sort of connecting with emotionally, and, you know, again, but I think it's probably more in that way of, like, you know, how we anthropomorphize pets and you know, that sort of thing. Yeah, it is like a connection, but like how, you know, we tend to try and see more of these things sometimes. But yeah, so for me, I think you're not going to get rid of that humans joining humans until you don't need humans to do the job, and then, you know, then we're all in a good place, you know, just laying back and enjoying some sort of utopia where all the things are done for us, and, you know, just trying to find meaning in the arts or something like that. But yeah, so yeah, that's sort of what we do at the moment, is put those generative AI tools into applicant tracking systems. So we integrate with Ashby,
Very
and
well. very well. Yeah.
We're building out another one very soon as well. So we're looking at the two sort of areas we're mainly focusing on is inbound, because there's a lot of application overwhelm, especially at the moment. There seems to be sort of a number of candidates that has gone up exponentially in terms of applications. So getting through those is really tricky. And so that, you know, our first piece is, as you said, the sort of summarizing an application. We look at the CV, we look at the job description, and we sort
I'm
of
just
try and
gonna explain a little bit from my point of view as a recruiter who has your JobsASI integration working within my applicant tracking system, what actually happens. So in Ashby, there's this awesome area of the APS where you basically just click a button and you can shoot through your applications really quickly. And there's automated email templates whereby you can either reject really nicely. You've set up your templates for that, and also for various different reasons why this person is not going to be progressing. On that page where that person's summary, profile, location, all the rest of it is, there's a note that Ben and Simon have built that summarizes in a paragraph where this person's strengths are, and sometimes where their weaknesses are, why they don't match up with the role. So in a snapshot, you can see whether this is going to be, I mean, you're still testing it out, right? I mean, I don't trust anything like completely yet. So I'll still go to the CV, but it's looking like it's working really well. I was really impressed with where it said, but they don't have this, this, and this. And then went into the CV. I was like, oh, right. I think the candidate didn't have any cloud experience. So yeah, so that's just to give you a sense of, without actually screen sharing, there's a little note that pops up with a paragraph that summarizes the candidate.
Yeah, so Ashby's UI is really great for that, and it's like a really nice workflow for the recruiters. They've worked really hard on that. So yeah, kudos to them. And we just sort of said, right, there's this small little thing that we can add that hopefully adds to that process. We've not got to that point yet where we're like fully can say that we can automate those bits. You know, and I think so. We're not a decision-making tool necessarily, but what we are is, you know, that, I don't know, you've heard that analogy of like how people write newspaper articles. It starts with the title, then the intro, and then like you know, the actual detail. And for us, we're like, you know, really that sort of intro that sort of tries to summarize things. And we've seen people like yourself use it as the first place they go to, but we've also seen our customers who continue with their normal workflow and then just check that note just to make sure they're not missing anything. And that's really nice to have, like a little check and balance of something that is sort of yeah, to some degree you know, unbiased and computer
Yeah,
computer.
for sure. That's a really good point. I'm actually just thinking another use case for it would be, if it's accurate and you're happy with it, would be a good place to start in terms of your summaries of the candidate when you're sending on CVs to the hiring managers, for example.
Yeah, that's 100%, you know, what we're thinking about in terms of, so yeah, funny enough, that's our second use case that we're looking at, is the sort of reporting. So obviously a lot of in-house talent teams, you know, it's a small team facing off against the whole organization, hiring. So in times when there's lots of hiring, there's lots of hiring managers. So we want to make sure that those reporting elements are something that we can help with. And a lot of the applicant tracking systems, Ashby is actually a really good example of this, have great dashboards, but it's very difficult to get a hiring manager to engage with a dashboard sometimes. And you know, if they don't know exactly what something means, it's
Or an applicant tracking system in general.
yeah, for sure. So, you know, and again, a lot of the time this communication is text, right? So having that something ready to share, like, hey, this is the summary of the you know, these are the 3 candidates I like, and here's their summaries. You know, that kind of email or Slack message or Teams message, that can be done very quickly now by just copying and pasting those things. In the future, we want to be able to send those, you know, maybe more automatically. And we're also looking at summarizing the sort of state or the health of the jobs and the things. So, you know, one of the things that we were talking about was the predictions we're now doing for when jobs will close. So just before this call, I merged the PR. So yeah, it's coming very shortly, and you'll see that we've built this you know, statistical methods. We use like for the technical people, we use a Markov chain Monte Carlo method, where we basically select all of the historic data, and then we run 10,000 trials just to see, you know, so new applicant, you know, they get progressed, they don't, you know, we run all that simulations in the background, and we put out like a sort of basically a spread of where those simulations happened. And so some of those simulations will be, you know, the perfect person applies tomorrow, and you interview them and hire them within 3 days. You know, those scenarios happen for sure. Unfortunately, they'll also have the sort of nobody good applies to the job and you don't do any sourcing for 3 months, and then eventually you find someone and the whole process takes 6 weeks. And so that's when, you know, that's the sort of end of that percentage and everything in between. And so we get a sort of, it's normally a normal distribution. And then what you can do is use that to say, right, you know, how accurate do we want to be in our prediction, and how gutsy do we want? So it moves the conversation away from, oh, I'm going to definitely close that job this month because I know I've got 2 candidates who I really like, into something a little bit more like, right, given the pipeline that we've got, there's a 50% chance we'll close this month. But actually, by the end of the week of next month, first week of next month, you know, we've got an 80% chance of closing the job. So, you know, if we miss that 50, you know, and you can be a bit more, you know, you give those error bars, and you can have a more informed conversation with the hiring manager. And if it looks like you have a very low chance of filling it very quickly, you can also say, right, well, actually, here's my 10 jobs, and you know, 8 of them have an 80% chance of closing this month or next month, but 2 of them have a 5% chance of closing this month or next month. So actually, those are the 2 that I kind of want to focus on. Those are the ones that are in the worst place. And it might be fine to do that. You'll know as the recruiter that, oh, actually, those jobs aren't very important. So it's okay if I focus on the other 8, right? But giving you those sort of percentage chances of closing and percentages when, then that gives you, you know, more information in a more structured way that allows that decision making and explainability, right? So you can say, this is why I'm working on this job, because this job is, you know, maybe 80% chance of closing in the next month. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to be fine with that.
Nice for planning and taking away a lot of the guesswork on that kind of thing. I like that idea that, you know, that you know that there's a high percentage that I'm going to close off 6 or 7 of those jobs this month. So I'm going to have capacity next month. It's all looking like it's on track. These ones are going to be tricky. I'm going to need to put more effort there unless they don't matter so much. Yeah, I like that. Nice for planning. So that's what's coming next. That's what you're working on at the moment. That's what you were showing me in terms of those spreads and graphs. Yeah.
Yeah, precisely. And then so what we were thinking of is like, these are the eventual goal is that summarization of jobs and what's going on. So you could just have a conversation and say, you know, type in to Slack or Teams and say, so what's the state of play of this job? And then we thought, well, okay, cool. Well, we can stick the data into an LLM, but actually we're not getting that much useful information. So we needed to build some stuff under the hood that is going to be more insightful about what's going on in those jobs. And this is
understanding you correctly, it sounds like a chatbot recruitment assistant. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the eventual plan, right? Is that we're building out these skills. So there's a lot of things that LLMs are really good for. What they're really bad for, and just machine learning in general, is if you know exactly what you want to do, then then there's no point using something that gives you statistics, right? So if the machine learning model gets it right 99% of the time, but you know every single time that this is the thing that you want to do, then it's often better to just do the thing. So we're building out these bits that are all going to be tools for the agents in the future. So yeah, I mean, I've been seeing a lot of this talk around, like, so we're mid-October. There's some chatter that OpenAI is going to be introducing agents in November, which is really exciting. So Microsoft has also just released last month some stuff around building autonomous agents. And what these are is really just recursive calls to LLMs. So where you've got this idea of, you've got the LLM and you give it a different persona and you get it to call the LLM in different ways. So you'll say to one, you're the planner, you're the planning agent. You'll say to another, you're the interview organizing agent. And you'll say to another, you are the candidate pitching agent or whatever, the person who's going to write the email, the email writer, the copywriter. And then rather than having this sort of, I know what I want to do, can I do this? You give it an objective and you say, look, I've got, these 200 applications. I'd like a short list of.
I didn't know about this, and I feel silly because I've been watching in so many other areas what's been unfolding, but I never actually for myself realized the potential of this. It's so exciting. My God. It's like you build a team. It's like, okay, you play that role, you play that role, you do this, you do that, and go make that happen.
Yeah. And that's it, right? Can you say, right, look, I'd like to fill this role, and it would start going through in those motions. It's like, right, well, first thing I should do is, is the job advertised? Yes, it's advertised. Okay, great. Like, how many applications have we got? Oh, you've got 100 applications. Oh, okay. The planner says, right, well, we need to review those applications. And so the summarizer that we built to go through, do that, that's going to go, right. Oh, okay, cool. Let me summarize all these applications. I think these are the top 10 people in my shortlist. Do you agree? And you can have that break for human intervention. So a lot of this stuff is we're going to build slowly and with a lot of oversight and a lot of check for bias and a lot of human in the loop. So most of it won't be fully autonomous for a long time.
Sure.
Until they've got confidence. And then even then, you'll still, because we're working with the applicant tracking system, there's nothing that we're going to do that's not auditable. And so, there's going to be times when, it just doesn't cut it, and you go into the applicant tracking system and look at these things. But the idea is that we'll get to that point where, you may not even need to go to the applicant tracking system unless you literally want to see a CV, because we'll just bring it to where you are, and you'll have that conversational interface. I think UIs are going to be around forever because sometimes it's good to see things, but hey, if we can go and fill your diary with a bunch of screening calls with candidates that are really high caliber, and then automate the scheduling of those for you, because we've got someone that likes talking to candidates in that, what is essentially just that sort of back and forth, and that all gets commented into the candidate, so you can see all of that. There's nothing hidden, and you then it's like, right, okay, cool. Now it seems like you've got enough interviews. Your likelihood of filling this job has moved from 80 to 95%. Maybe you should focus your time here. Should we organize some more interviews for you here? And it becomes that co-pilot for recruitment. So
amazing. So is that where you say that's where you guys are headed with JobsASI? That's the vision, the long goal. That's where you're going. How exciting.
So I mean, that's the thing. If you imagine like I said, I think there's parts of this that can be automated, and there's, you'll see larger talent teams will have whole teams dedicated to the recruitment coordinator type piece. They'll have teams looking at talent intelligence. They'll have teams looking at operational efficiencies and that sort of thing. And if we can get someone, a smaller team who maybe doesn't have that expertise, or just really, don't have the budget for that sort of thing, we can get them to 80% of what a team like that might do, relatively quickly and cheaply. Then I think we've got a really, really exciting product.
Absolutely. It's like build your dream team with ASI, and then there's still going to be a human in the room for the, you know, for the auditing, for the decision making, and so on. Anything else that you in particular, you know, the conversation often goes that way in my podcast, depending upon who I'm chatting to, because I want to focus on the human element. I'm so fascinated by what that magic thing is that we were talking about before that differentiates us, because we are, you know, we built the AI. It didn't just become, like, human brains made that happen. But then there's this other like warm space. Like, technology feels quite cold. You know when you're talking to a chatbot, you know when you can even see when somebody's LinkedIn post was written by ChatGPT, you know, you can feel it somehow. There's some sort of instinctive thing. What else do you think is highlighted in the human through these sorts of technologies?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's all sorts of tasks that computers are way better at. And, you know, a perfect example is, you know, the calculator, right? Like what, you know, why there's some humans who can get to that level of, you know, squaring
But
numbers,
it's
and
very rare.
yeah, you know, it takes a huge amount of focus, effort, you know, and you know, that is now in the palm of people's hands. They're on people's computers, on people's phones. It's ubiquitous now. You can just take those numbers and add them in, and you know, spreadsheets as well. Like these things, it's like you can't hold all that in your head and do those calculations, right? So you know, that's quite a low complexity of really data manipulation. So for me, if more and more of those things are, so yeah, I don't know, like, have you used ChatGPT's data piece yet?
No.
So
What
you
have
can
you
put
been
in,
using it for?
so yeah, so you can put in a CSV and of some tabular data and say, hey, like, you know, what's the
Asking for
average?
insights. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You know, can you draw me a chart like this? And it'll use Python to draw a chart and it give you the code. And so, yeah, it's really cool to see how a lot of these skills, I think, yeah, I think the key, the phrase that we liked to talk around was, you know, moving you from being an operator to an orchestrator, you know, so where there's things that are better done by machines. They are, you know, very much sort of repetitive tasks. They might involve more data. They might involve calculations and stats. Like these are things that it's much better to have the machines be the operator for, and you be the orchestrator. So you do need to know enough. If you're looking at like some sort of data piece, you need to be like, that doesn't feel right. Like, can I see the math? Can I dig underneath and see you're working?
Mm-hmm.
But it will allow, I think, a lot more people to become a lot more data literate and a lot more sort of understanding, because you've got that sort of like, give me the high level, right? Okay, cool. I want to understand the next layer below, the next layer below, and you can learn more and more that way. So I think that, you know, one of the things that's been shown from all the studies of you know, people using these generative AI tools is not that it makes the best better, but that it brings everyone up to a much higher average. So I think we found that what we do, like for someone who has been recruiting 10 years, a specific profile, the summaries are not going to be that useful, right? You know, because they can do that, right? They've trained on that, like, right? But someone who is an expert in, say, the technical domain, you know, moving over into the business, and suddenly you've got to recruit an accountant that you've never recruited before, and you don't understand any of the words, or it's all gobbledygook. The summaries are super useful because they bring you up to, you know, above average, like that, you know. So you go from being like the newest noob to being like above average at understanding what a profile is and how it pertains. So that's something that's really powerful. So yeah, I see there's lots of things here in terms of, you know, getting rid of our weaknesses, that, you know, I think, I don't know, like there will be times, I'm sure, where it goes ahead of us, like AlphaGo and whatnot. But yeah, I'm excited to see where things go, because
Fun to be a
yeah,
part of it wherever it goes. That's kind of my take on it. It's like, well, I'm not in control of what happens next. I'll be as responsible as I can with whatever comes my way. I'm certainly not going to let AI decide who comes into the company that I work for at this stage. Do you know what I mean? But if I'm in the future, if there's vast numbers of something repetitive, of course I'm gonna take these things on, and just keep that human connection, that warm space, as opposed to that cold technical space that I was talking about before, at the forefront of who I am and what I bring to this whole revolution.
yeah, and that's the thing for me, right? Is I fundamentally do believe that no matter what, like, humans are going to carry on making these decisions. Like, even if we can give you like the perfect Moneyball team,
Mhm.
you know that if even if the stats said the right thing, there would be some people in those scenarios that you might not be able to get, right? So you're never going to get like a full only stats based sort of hiring. I think, at least, I think there's still going to be that.
Soft skills, gut instinct, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and people often malign gut instincts, right? Gut instinct is experience. Like,
Mhm.
it's, you've seen that before, and now that is like technically a bias as well. But
Yes,
like,
best
not
kind of
all,
bias, in my opinion. Yeah.
you've seen something before, it's not worked for X, Y reason. It's not a definite no immediately. It's just a prod to probe a little deeper in that area, and double check with your colleagues, get more eyes, more times, so that other people can see if you're, like, hallucinating something, or whether
Mhm.
it's like something
Mhm.
that, yeah, other people can see as well, and other people are like, oh, actually, that's a good point. Maybe let's
Mhm.
not hire this person. So yeah, I think these things are really important.
Mhm. Mhm. Cool. Well, we're running out of time, so I think we better wrap this up. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Appreciate you spending the time with me. It's been a great chat, and I know I'm going to see you again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Like, more product feedback, please. Yes.
I like being the guinea pig. I've never had this opportunity before. It's a lot of fun. Thank you, Ben.
Alrighty. Thanks a lot.